Okay, let's talk about the 2 times not to tell a story. Because I think we've all fallen victim to those couple of things, right? Okay, let's talk about the 2 times not to tell a story. Because I think we've all fallen victim to that. Well, you know that thing where you're talking to someone and maybe it's at a networking thing or maybe it's on, LinkedIn or something. You're talking to someone and they've got a thing, right? They've got a thing. They're, I don't know, they're an investments advisor or they're an SEO specialist or, whatever it is. And of course, to them, your problems all look like they're to do with the state of your financial affairs or the keywords on your website or whatever it is. And so we've all fallen victim to that kind of sort of slightly railroady thinking. That thinking where, someone's got a hammer and every problem looks like a nail. You've heard that phrase, I'm sure. So that's the first thing we've fallen victim to. And the second thing we often fall victim to, I think, is that same thing in ourselves. Like, I have a company called Stories That Mean Business. I run a channel called storyhacker.tv and a podcast called storyhacker.tv, slightly weirdly, but that's what I do. And I'm banging on about stories all the time. And I want to make sure, I want to make crystal clear that stories are not the answer to every problem. Back in the mid-90s when I was working for IBM, we did a job with Chelsea Football Club, and they were in the process of rebuilding their sort of stadium and the sort of shopping centre around that. And they were really, really interested in having sort of Swiss electronic signs. And, the technology back then was miles away from what we had now. And in the end, we had to kind of say to them, do you know what? Sometimes you just need really simple, normal signs that work. Technology is not always the answer. SEO isn't always the answer. Financial planning isn't always the answer, and stories definitely aren't the answer. So these are the 2 times I think that you really want to steer clear of stories, and they are when you're actually making the sale. A story is an amazing thing, particularly a strong origin story is an amazing thing for getting attention, for connecting with the right audience, and for creating momentum. You can use a story to get the right, to get your prospect into the right mood. But a story is not for selling. That is very different. When you make an offer, it's a very different kind of dynamic. It relies on all the other stuff, but it's a different thing. So that's the first time. When you're offering something, at that moment, at that sort of discrete moment, you don't need a story, you don't want a story. And the other time, of course, is when you're providing support or help to people. I mean, if someone calls up and they've got a problem, the last thing they need is to hear a story about how you once solved a problem, or solved a problem like this even. What they need is their particular thing solved. So, very self-evidently, stories aren't always the thing. And although we build these mythologies around our businesses, or we should be building these mythologies around our businesses, it's a platform, and, that is part of your culture, part of your kind of business heritage, the origin of your product or your service or your personal brand or whatever it is. But it is not for everything. And I just